And we're live. Welcome, everybody, to Unloose the Goose, the Agorist podcast super group. And today we really don't have much of a topic. We're kind of going to freestyle a little bit. We're going to try to mix it in with the theme of empowerment, just so there's some cohesion and we're not just pulling stuff out of our rear ends, although it'll be mostly that, which is fun. I know you guys like the stuff that comes out of our rear ends in the audience.
Wait a minute.
Or you wouldn't be listening. My name's John Bush. Today we're joined by the lovely Nicole Sauce and Senor Spirko. How are you guys doing?
Jack got a haircut.
He got a haircut. He's looking sharp, that guy.
Yeah, I got my haircut with a workshop.
Yeah.
That's like my people say it's my twice or biannual haircut. I get 3 a year, man. I mean, what do you want from me?
You participated in the D3 Tech Summit, and you participated in the Greater Reset last time too. And whoever dug up the picture, it's an old picture. And just when you look at those old pictures, man, you lost a lot of weight. You look good.
I did lose a lot of weight. I got a lot more gray though.
It's like night and day. That's wisdom.
For every pound I lost, I put on 20 gray hairs.
Nice.
Is that how that works?
I think so. I don't know.
I sprung a bunch after my divorce. That was hell. Before it was the kids giving it to me. Then it was...
Just wait till your teenagers get involved.
Oh man.
In the gray hair creation process.
You're old when you got gray chest hairs. That's when it's
there he goes.
Like it's over when that happens.
I'm
now
pretty
we're
sure
talking.
I'm not getting gray chest hair for a long time.
I hope not.
Excellent. All right. Well, I'm going to MC and try to keep us on some sort of track, although it'll be a long and winding road. So we just had a couple events. I hosted the D3 Tech Summit as part of the Greater Reset, and Nicole had an event there in Tennessee with their crew. So we can share a little recap and, like we said, mix in a little theme of empowerment. That's really what this show is all about, is being empowered, not just focusing on the problem or complaining about all the tyranny and technocracy in the world, but finding solutions so you can find more freedom in your life and hopefully expand that outward, right? Through a podcast or talking to family and friends or entrepreneurship, offering goods and services that enhance people's lives. All of these are beautiful things. So why don't you give us a breakdown of your workshop? And you said you had an insight. Some people kind of came out of their shell.
Every year, the workshop has some sort of insight or corner that we all turn. And I never know that's going to be in advance. This year, our theme was Thrive, because when you're taking control of your life and building it the way you want to live it, you have to thrive. And a lot of people come in and say, I'm going to raise quail, or I'm going to grow my own food, or I'm going to start this business delivering Grubhub stuff, or whatever it is. And they design it in a way that makes it so they're working all the time and they're miserable, or they're losing money. They end up with a really expensive hobby in the form of aquaponics. Aquaponics does not have to be an expensive hobby. It should be bringing you more value than you're getting. And so we had a lot of business focuses. We had sessions on business structure and ways to track your expenses very well so that you can maximize your deductions and pay Uncle Sam a little bit less, paired with hard demos like how to go from hoof to fork on a pig and how to make cheese, things like that. So it was kind of like homesteading meets business. And then we just had a whole lot of fun. But the insight we got out wasn't, hey, build your stuff so that you make money and you have the kind of free time you want and the family time you want. It was before the event, a number of introverts said, I'm going out of my comfort zone here. I'm coming to this event. I'm awkward around people. They admitted it. So just admitting that for an introvert is out of their comfort zone. And they got down here and they weren't uncomfortable. And they realized a lot of, I heard this from probably 6 or 7 people. I got down there and I realized that the reason I'm quote unquote awkward socially is that I'm around people who are toxic all the time in different communities. Because if you have a community with 1 or 2 toxic people, those people run the community. And that's where you have that unwelcome thing. Here, they were around people who are doers and empowerers, and they felt comfortable and safe. And some of them even sang karaoke, Jack.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
I mean, got up and spoke publicly, all of it. It was great. One of them went home, wrote me a guest form request, and I interviewed her right away as the workshop recap. And that was way out of her comfort zone because she's a writer, not a talker. So that was the big thing. And they're going home and they're looking at the communities that they're in and deciding which ones to leave, because the only thing you can do if you don't run the community is get out if it's toxic.
Agreed. Have you noticed that a lot of that happens at like your workshops, my workshops, people like you made a conscious effort this time to make it happen even more? But
Yeah.
I mean, I have talked to people, the one workshop at your place I went to, the multiple ones here, where you're having a conversation and then they tell you that they're shy, that they're introverted, or whatever. And you're like, what the hell are you talking about? You've been working the room for 3 days, you know?
Yeah.
And they're telling you on the last night when everybody's plowed out on rum or whatever, like that they're an introvert, they don't talk to people. I'm like, you've been talking to everybody. And I think it's like being around people, like you said, that aren't toxic, but I also think it's like going, holy shit, I'm normal.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Some of us are more extroverted than others. Obviously, podcasters, media personalities, we have some of that going on, but we probably also, I mean, I know before I started doing in-life events with my community, I always felt like I gotta be a weird duck, man. I really do it. I figured out I'm actually just a normal goose.
No, we're normal. Out there is not normal. That's what people don't realize.
Yeah.
And then when they do, it changes their life. And I'm excited to see when they come back next year what they're doing, because every time that epiphany happens, the next year you come back and there's this totally different person who has owned their life and they've owned what they're going to be and they've built it the way they want it rather than the way they were told they have to build it.
Yeah.
Breaking the rules, man. That's what we do. And like what amazes me is how many rules aren't rules.
Yeah.
Like no one will come take you away. No one will arrest you. No one will fine you. Like there are life rules. Like if you do bad shit, like you get bad karma back or whatever. But in general, so many people do so many things they think they have to do. And I'm like, you don't have to do that. And I think a big part of it is like meeting 20, 30 other people that are like, yeah, I don't do that shit. And they're like, really? Yeah. Like, I think just being around people, like you realize like, this is going to sound weird because it's not the same thing. But when I was really young and broke ass, I worked at a factory and shipping center and things like that. We had to pack these boxes and load them and label them and put them on the truck. And we were judged based on the dollar value of the stuff that went in. It was like a piecework thing.
Yeah.
And I was always good, but I wasn't like the best. Right. And the supervisor put this guy with me named Nate. And he's like, I'm going to do everything. All you got to do is seal the boxes and push them out. Try to keep up. And I'm like, who the hell is this guy? And I almost died. Like 3 hours. All I was doing was sealing boxes, writing the thing on them and pushing them out. And the guy almost killed me. And I was in my 20s in like prime of health.
Yeah.
But my performance exploded from that point forward on a mundane job like that, just because you were with somebody that took it to that level. And I think that's what happens in events like what you just did. Like people are around others that they up that level and then they just naturally go, oh shit. It's like, you know, the first guy that ever ran like the 4-minute mile, like, and all of a sudden like 20 other people did it in 6 months or something like that. And it was supposed to be undoable. And one guy does it and then boom, it just falls.
Yeah.
I like the crowd that we roll in because everyone's so non-judgmental. So it's a great place for introverts to come out of their shell. You know, I actually don't even like the term introvert, extrovert, because I don't think it's like a classification that has some scientific methodology behind it. I think it's a self-imposed term, a judgment that someone puts on themselves. Anybody that's introverted it takes a little bit of work and, you know, a little bit of getting used to being a little more outgoing, but anybody that's introverted can be an extrovert at the same time. And it's especially easy if you consider yourself an introvert around a cool laid back crowd like Nicole's crew or the TSP community or the Aggers community, much of the Liberty community. It's not like back in high school when everyone was judgmental and you had to be cool and this, that, or the other. There's a really welcoming vibe. So, and you guys said that we're normal, but really we're the weirdos. And when you're around the other weirdos, then you're like, okay, cool.
No, they're weird. We need to change that.
Yeah. I'm with Nicole.
They're weird. An introvert is a person who recharges by themselves. So you'll see them, even if it's somebody who's really personable and out there and having a good time, you'll see them take a walk for a minute by themselves. In our community, when you see that, people don't run up and say, are you okay? but they will in other places. And all you're thinking is because I'm one, you're thinking, just leave me the fuck alone for 5 minutes and I'll be back. I just needed to think this through. And then I'm going to go back in and be my normal vivacious self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People get overwhelmed.
That's how I ended up on the Appalachian Trail for 3 months when I got out of the Army, because I got back from that, and my last straw was I was with some old high school friends who were sitting around this lake drinking beer and all, and they were just talking about like it sounded like they were still in high school, and the years had gone by since then. And I just grabbed a beer and I walked 30 yards away, sat on a rock and just reflected, enjoyed the thing, had a beer by one beer. I mean, you guys know me, it doesn't take me that long to drink one beer. And I came back over and, everybody just seemed a little bit weird. And then I heard them talking later, like, man, what's wrong with Jack? What's wrong with him? And I'm like, y'all are wrong with me. I didn't say anything, but I'm just thinking, y'all are wrong with me. You don't shut up about all your needless, pointless, childish crap. And I needed a break. And I realized, like, I was ready to snap. I was ready to punch people in the face for standing in line wrong at the grocery store. Because when you go to like a military grocery store, there's a right way to stand in line. I'm like, you can't impose your will on others like that. So I just left for like 3 months and got my shit together. But I think that, like, these events, I think that's kind of what happens is people in 3 days, they get their shit together, because it's so much more empowering than being alone, to be together with people that are normal. And I do think I agree with Nicole. That's just normal.
There's a lot of
there was the D3 thing you were doing at the same time. So I originally intended to do a watch party and stream it. And then we had winter, spring, and fall in 3 days at my event. And it became a bit of a logistical struggle, although we kept everybody as warm as we could and as dry as we could. What happened at D3, John? Like, what did you see there?
Well, we hosted the Decentralized, Distributed, and Disruptive Technology Summit. It was the 24th and 25th, just wrapped up. It was 2 days. Each day was like 5 hours. So it was 10 hours of content. And it went really well. There was quite a few people that tuned into the stream. And we really got deep into cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. And speaking of empowerment, like, a lot of the Greater Reset audience is skeptical about cryptocurrency, right? In fact, there's this woman, Alison McDowell, who does amazing research on the fourth industrial revolution and human capital markets and all of this track and trace surveillance technology. And she's extremely critical of blockchain, but she sees it so black and white, like the Illuminati types, technocrats are leveraging blockchain technology for greater surveillance, therefore blockchain bad. And there's a lot of folks that subscribe to that. She even like tried to take me and Derek to task, calling us out publicly. But before she did, she blocked both of us, so we couldn't respond. And is like, I wonder why the Freedom Cell Network is so concerned with cryptocurrency, but they don't mention human capital bonds. And I'm like, every time I bring up cryptocurrency, we do mention that kind of stuff and that there's a problem. So there's a lot of people that were skeptical. So one of my aims was to kind of demystify and make it more accessible, but then also really take note of the fact that blockchain technology is being used for digital identity certificates, and it'll be a wonderful application for immunity passports and even geospatial tokenization, where if you have this token, then you can enter the public transport. If you don't, then you can't, that kind of deal, like some China stuff. But the point is that it's a tool like a firearm. It can be used to coerce, it can be used to enslave, or it can be used to fend off an attacker, or it can be used for an uprising, a revolution, to throw off a tyrannical dictator. Just the same blockchain, I think that it was created organically. I think it was probably a little conglomerate of these cypherpunk crypto anarchists. And they're like, let's work together. And we know this is going to be a big deal, so we don't want to put our identity to it. Like Jack was saying, one of the best things Satoshi Nakamoto did was just stay hidden. But it was created organically, in my opinion. And then, of course, the powers that be are going to leverage it and utilize it. It's a great tool. It's wonderful for analysis and for collecting data and for presenting that data. So it's a great database. It's a huge improvement in evolution and innovation when it comes to database technology. And so for people to just say, well, they're doing that with it, therefore it's bad and we should stay away from it, really leaves a lot of opportunity on the table. And that Jack was the keynote for day one, and his speech was really well received. And that's one of the things I got out of it, was like, it's a weapon. If we just ignore the weapon and don't use it ourselves and cede that territory to the enemy, then it's going to be even harder to overcome what we're facing.
Yeah, I mean, think about it like World War II, right? We all know the U.S. developed the atomic bomb in World War II and dropped it on Japan. And maybe we shouldn't have dropped it on Japan.
Wait, what's this we business?
You dropped it. You know what I mean? When I say we, I mean as a nation.
Our government.
I don't know that it needed to be dropped, but I don't think what most people know is that Germany and Japan had their own nuclear programs and were like really close to having the bomb. So without putting any of our shtick on it and just accepting World War II as what it was, if the U.S. had said, you know what, atomic bombs are bad, we don't want one. Well, you know, Germany fell anyway. Japan may or may not have fallen, but let's just give Japan like 2 more months. And maybe we have a different world today in a mushroom cloud over Los Angeles. I don't know. But you don't ignore the weaponry of your enemy. And every historical war has been an arms race. And to me, I like this arms race. I like our odds in this arms race. Like if our arms race is based on guns, I'm still going to own guns. I'm still going to fight back with that, right? But the reality is they can make more guns than we can, no matter how many 3D printers go burn, no matter what, right? They can make more guns. They can buy more guns because they can tax more people and they have more money to buy more guns and pay more people to point them at you. I don't think you can compete in a world where 5 dudes in somebody's basement can get together and develop the next cutting edge privacy technology.
Yeah.
And that can happen with millions of people at all times. And then even when they build the chain, that's the thing about blockchain. You can build on somebody else's chain without their permission. That's how blockchains work, right? Pirate Chain, my favorite privacy crypto.
I didn't know you had that.
Favorite right
you should have bought it when I told you. I'm just going to say that. Anyway,
thank you, Jack Spirko.
Yep, Nicole's net worth has gone up.
You got a Lambo in the front yard.
No, but R doesn't just run on R's blockchain. It runs on R's blockchain, Komodo's blockchain, and Bitcoin's blockchain all at the same time. Now, they didn't like write to the Bitcoin people and say, may we please use your chain, right? They just did it. Yeah. And so even some of the stuff that's being designed like to do digital identification, one of the things I'm excited about is I want to do digital ID. I just don't want it to say Jack Spirko or John Bush or Nicole Sauce. I want a digital ID for my second personality in this cipher world where I can do business as a citizen of that virtual nation. And maybe no one needs to know that it's Jack Spirko. They just need to know my trust and reputation there, which is a lot of how like the Satoshi stuff went down, right? Like we don't really know if it was Satoshi or team Satoshi. But when you brought that up, John, I found something since then. Everybody has to listen to this. There's a podcast. I'll find the link for it. Maybe we could drop it into YouTube when I find it. It's called The Last Days of Satoshi. And it goes through, instead of just, everybody says, I read the white paper. Okay, fine. It goes through like all of the forum back and forth of development right up until the absolute last day when Satoshi just poof went away. And this whole idea now that like Satoshi was some god that was to be obeyed, like it kills it. And I read all that years ago, but it was put together in such a great audio, like an audiobook format. Yeah, it's amazing. And I think it'll take a lot of people that are skeptical on blockchain, like the CIA did it or whatever, and make you realize like probably not. Though the CIA is involved. The CIA is involved with that story because one of the guys that worked on the original code did meet with U.S. intelligence.
Gavin Andreessen.
Yeah, Gavin Andreessen. He did meet with.
That's when Satoshi dipped out. He's like, oh shit, CIA wants to learn about it. I'm out, and no more posts. There's a book too. It's called The Book of Satoshi, and it's his collective writings.
Those are both worth checking out. The audio thing though, we got audio people listening to us, right?
Yeah, for sure. I'll listen to the audio. It's really interesting. And he was fallible and didn't know it all and wanted it to be a community project and wanted to bring on other people. There was no ego involved, obviously, because it wasn't tied to his identity, and he just seeded it out. So yeah, somebody asked in the comments on YouTube, here's a topic: using crypto to get away from all kinds of abusive relationships, personal or governmental. And, interestingly enough, there's so much overlap. I don't know if you guys have seen this post going around on Facebook or on social media, and it's like, my partner won't let me leave the house. And every time I do leave the house, I have to check in. And when I go into a place, he makes sure and follows me. And if I don't do this, then he won't let me leave ever again until I comply with whatever. And they're like, oh, wait, that's the government. So it's a trip, the parallels between an abusive relationship and an abusive relationship with the government. But I guess to kind of answer the question, if you're specifically referring to an abusive relationship and perhaps you have some sort of money and wealth that you want to conceal or cover, I mean, if you're married and the wealth or crypto was accumulated after the marriage, then legally, quote unquote, it's considered community property, right? So be careful with that. But if you're like trying to flock or flee, or you do have a controlling abusive partner that wants to leverage financial coercion in order to control you, then cryptocurrency is a good tool because it's not like a joint bank account kind of deal. You can literally go, and even in a relationship, you can have some sovereignty, right? And you can put some money into that and you can keep it a secret and you can just have it recorded somewhere safely and securely. And you don't even have to have it on your phone. If there's an abusive relationship where one partner snoops through the other partner's phones, you can set up a non-custodial wallet and then you do your recovery phrase. And then you have your wallet and you have crypto sent to it or you buy it, however, and then you can delete the wallet off your phone and just hold on to that piece of paper in a safe place. And then interestingly enough, this also helps when avoiding the man in the government, right? Yeah. One of the best ways to get crypto privately is through peer-to-peer, human-to-human relationships, which is what I always try to play up with the Freedom Cell network, is to build those networks, try to find people that are well-known or trusted in the TSP community, the Tennessee crew, the Unloose, the Goose community. And then there's a service like BISC, B-I-S-Q. Now you get taxed quite a bit, like 10% on top, but they do allow you to buy anonymous peer-to-peer. There's a few other ones. Local.bitcoins.com is one also. Just make sure that you do a transaction with someone that has a trusted reputation, not just 2 trades or 5 trades, but hundreds of trades with 97 or 98% approval or higher. That's the advice I would give. And then I just want to give a quick plug for a workshop that I'm doing myself, along with Matt McKibben. He's been in crypto for years and years and years. And Ramiro Romani, who co-produced the Greater Reset and the D3 Tech Summit. We're doing a live virtual workshop. It's going to be interactive. We're going to do it on Zoom. So there's going to be Q&A. There's going to be breakout sessions. It's called Demystifying Crypto, How to Buy, Hold, HODL, HODL. And everyone's like, "Did you misspelled the headline there, John? You're usually pretty good about that stuff." It's like, no, it's a conversation starter. We can talk about what that means too. And then how to multiply your crypto also. So it's going to be 2 days, 8 hours worth of content. I'm going to go deep on the basics. What is cryptocurrency? What is blockchain technology? How does it work? Why is it valuable? Everyone's like, why the hell is this valuable? It's not backed by anything. What is this? How does its price get derived? We're going to go into that. And then we're going to talk about some practical stuff on how to set up a wallet, how to set it up safely and securely. This is geared towards beginners, but intermediate alike, because there's a lot of folks that are, they just took off running, but maybe there's some best practices that they haven't really picked up on. We're going to talk about privacy coins. Privacy is huge in this community with this audience. So we're going to talk about how to acquire crypto privately and then how to transact, send and receive crypto. Definitely be talking about Pirate Chain and Monero as well. And then Matt McKibben's going to talk about decentralized finance. So this is great for beginners and for intermediate folks. There's actually mechanisms in place now that are legit and popularized where you can take your cryptocurrency, you can stake it, and you can essentially earn interest. You can even use your cryptocurrency as collateral to get loans from other cryptocurrency holders and services. Super cool. There's decentralized exchanges where you can swap cryptocurrencies without having to do know your customer check, which is a critical point of private crypto. And then finally, the last part, we're going to do a whole section on internet privacy. We're calling this a bonus just to kind of sweeten the deal. So we're going to learn about VPNs, surfing privately, avoiding cookies. And if you use Facebook, Zuckerberg snooping around and following you from website to website to serve you up some ads, probably share information with the CIA too. And then we're going to talk about encrypted chat and encrypted email services. There's a bunch of them. And I think I'm on all on top of it. Like, I got Proton Mail. And then it's like, no, Proton Mail is controlled by the CIA. You're like, oh, man. So we're going to try to break down best practices in that regard too. So people can learn about that and sign up at cryptoandprivacy.com, cryptoandprivacy.com. And I just created a 15% off coupon code. It's Goose. 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 You get 15% off just for this audience. Cryptoandprivacy.com.
I'm glad you're doing that, John, because we need it. Because what I'm dealing with now because of Pirate, because people don't listen when it's, 8 cents. They listen when it goes up to like $9 and you're like, you might want to wait a little bit right
Same
now.
thing with Bitcoin.
But they're in FOMO mode. So what I used to deal with was I want to buy Bitcoin. Okay, fine. You want to buy Bitcoin for cash? Go to Coinbase. Yeah. Do it with Square. Just here's how you buy Bitcoin. Okay. Then they buy Bitcoin. Now I want to put it in my wallet. Well, here's how you do that. And it was easy. Now I've got people going from no crypto to they want to know how to get Bitcoin without KYC, which unless you go through one of these things like you're talking about, which they don't have time to do right now, isn't going to happen. So now you're going to have to buy with KYC, transfer out of something like a normal exchange like a Coinbase into like a DEX like Polarity, swap into a privacy coin, and then transfer it into a highly encrypted wallet that doesn't work real fast like a Coinami does. And it's like, I really can't.
It's a
challenge.
I
can't be that guy, man. I can't I can't handhold individual people through this, even if I got paid to do it. So I really can't do it for free. So I'm glad you're doing that, because I think what happened is people all of a sudden woke up to the reality of, wait, we really can keep our business private. And then they want to jump into it all the way. And there's kind of a learning curve there that when you've been doing this for 6-8 years, you don't remember it anymore. You're just like, you just go to the exchange and buy it,
Yeah, it's a challenge, especially it's a challenge already for beginners. I notice a lot of people have trouble. Like the Coinbase is easy enough. Tie your bank account, tie a card, and then it's kind of has a PayPal type platform.
Yeah.
But what I was asked to help with a lot when I was doing consultations is sending it from Coinbase to a non-custodial wallet, because then you start messing with an address and this, and people get anxious. And, I'm not going to say you should be anxious, but you should be cautious, because once you enter the realm of total freedom, it comes with a great responsibility. And if you screw something up, there's no customer service to respond to. Even if you send it to the wrong wallet or send Bitcoin to a BCH address, Coinbase isn't going to be able to help you there. They can help you with some stuff internally, but that's a big step. But that's using Bitcoin, which has a proven track record and all sorts of innovations. Pirate Chains actually is pretty challenging with some of their wallets. Just the people like downloading the entire blockchain, that can kind of be overwhelming. Like, wait a second, how long is this supposed to take? I like the mobile wallet that I use personally. The mobile one's a lot more simple, but I'm going to figure out best practices and definitely help people step through that. Because it's not just your listeners that are into R now. It's like taking over the crypto vigilante. Jeff Berwick was promoting it too. And it's just kind of exploding. So we had Paul Pui on. He's with Edge Wallet, which is a great sophisticated wallet, multi-wallet. And I don't know if you had heard, but they're going to set up to receive R pretty soon too. So that'll be a really great solution. That'll make things a lot easier.
That'll make it way easier for people.
The R devs are working on some new protocols that are going to make the wallets easier. I mean, so without getting too technical, they're using basically the same shielded addresses that Zcash does if you use the privacy, but Zcash is optional privacy. So like all the exchanges and stuff, when you buy and trade Zcash, it's not private. Only 6% of the transactions on the Zcash network are private, and it uses what's called a zero knowledge proof. Well, it was easy for the exchanges because it had a Z at the beginning of it, but basically it was just like a Bitcoin address for the exchanges. Now you have this highly encrypted with like 1,300 different rings within the encryption thing that is mandatorily private, and it's just complicated. And since exchanges have never done it before, and it's way different than Monero had already been adopted into, like multi-signature wallets and stuff like, or not multi-signature, multi-coin wallets, light wallets, etc. So there was a lot of pre-existing code. You could just kind of go, oh, that's how we handle Monero. R is a totally different tech. So they're making some changes I think are going to roll out next month. That will get them not only on more exchanges, but get the liquidity on the existing exchanges rolling a lot better. And it should do really well from there. And, it's an emerging technology. And that actually shows you how freaking private it is. I have the notes from John's D3 on my website. It's at the Survival Podcast /D3. Survival Podcast, thesurvivalpodcast.com /D3. And at the bottom of those notes, there is a R address. And I said, anybody that can tell me anything meaningful about that R address, other than the fact that, because I'm associated with it, I will give you the money in the address. And I haven't heard from anybody yet. It's been a week.
No?
No, nobody can tell me anything about it. It's like, like you give me your Bitcoin address, your Bitcoin Cash address, etc. I'll tell you everything. I'll tell you every transaction in and out of it. And
yeah,
we need more technology like this. We really do.
Yeah, the transparency is a setback. And, I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of people that are really skeptical about crypto. And like, we're not denying that. The fact that you have an entirely public, transparent blockchain, just a record of all the transactions ever since the Genesis block, it really leaves a lot of room to be improved upon when it comes to privacy. And they have this chain analysis technology now. And what happens, a lot of people aren't aware that it's totally transparent. More people are now, but in the early days, everyone thought they could buy drugs on Silk Road and be just fine. But I went to the Ross Ulbricht trial and was blown away by the Department of Justice and how well-versed they were all of a sudden. I think with that trial, actually, that's when they kind of perfected their knowledge on, and they used the private sector, of course. The public sector wasn't able to do it. They learned from the private sector and brought on goons to do that. But the cool thing about a cryptocurrency transaction, not every one, but most of them, it's like this weird series of inputs and outputs. So if I receive cryptocurrency, it's an input, but the output that would come from Jack's wallet, for example, it pulls all the different inputs if it needs to so if you've accumulated a whole Bitcoin over the course of like 50 transactions, you've just been buying it slowly and saving it, and then you want to send a whole Bitcoin to another wallet, there's going to be all these different inputs it has to pull from. And if the man ties your identity to one address that's been in your chain of transactions here and there, then they can go back and kind of deduce from all those inputs and outputs, like, oh, these are all tied to this guy as well. And these all were in this one transaction took place. So there's some stuff that you can do to try to conceal that, at least from a surface level, but that information is there. So that's why I think a lot of people are turning to these privacy coins more and more now.
Well, and what we're going to be able to do is the Komodo guys and the R guys are working together through the Blockchain Privacy and Adoption Association with developing swaps, atomic swaps using R. So let's say you had that Bitcoin, you kind of wanted to erase its history. You can basically send that Bitcoin to yourself through this R atomic swap, and all the Bitcoin history behind that just is gone. It just kind of went away. It just disappeared. And then it reappeared on the other side as a totally new Bitcoin on a totally new address. That Bitcoin has to come from somewhere. So there may be some history attached to it, but as far as your association with it, it began that second. And they're doing that for a lot of reasons. One is privacy. Another is just interoperability, usability, and adoption. So let's say I go to John and I'm like, hey, I want to buy your Kratom. And John, he's not a nice guy like he is. He was some dick that didn't like pirate for some reason. And I'm like, I want Kratom. And he's like, I take crypto. And I'm like, well, I want to give you R. And he's like, no, screw you. I want Bitcoin Cash. Well, with this new technology and this new app, if he's willing to use that app, I can pay him in R. He gets Bitcoin Cash. I stay invisible, and maybe he's not an agorist and he's running a brick and mortar store and he has to pay the man, do sales tax, all that. He can get Tether if he wants. He can get dollars. If he's in Europe, he can get euros immediately, instantly. And I am essentially spending digital cash. It's completely untraceable. And I think, we're supposed to be talking about empowerment tonight. To me, that's very empowering.
Yeah.
Because we're heading toward a world where I don't have that ability anymore. So this is an example of taking that thing that, yes, is a weapon, and let's use it versus ignore it. Because if you ignore weapons, they get used on you and you have no defense.
Yeah. Yeah. The ultimate irony is all these folks are like, they're creating this mark of the beast panopticon surveillance control grid, and crypto is a part of that. When in reality, crypto is one of the most effective tools outside of person-to-person barter and swapping gold and you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. It's the most effective tool to do transactions online. It is exactly the antidote to the very problem that these folks are so concerned with. But because they're blinded by this article or this person that doesn't have a full grasp of what we're really dealing with here, which is pretty freaking cool, they just turn it away. And that's really unfortunate.
Well, and I also have like
conflate the negative potential negative impacts of a thing or a tool or a process that could be abusive with the freeing aspect of that same tool. And if anything bad can happen, then it's terrible, right? And we see this with guns.
With Kratom too.
Yeah, where it's freeing and it can be used to abuse, but it doesn't have to be. And then that goes back to the person who's using that process or that tool or that thing.
Yeah. You can choose to be empowering with it. Like, I'm going to get a gun and I'm going to learn how to use it safely and proficiently. And I'm going to be empowered to feel more safe and protected and sovereign when I'm out and about, instead of feeling afraid or who's that lurking in the corner. You know that you can protect yourself. Same thing
Earlier
with crypto.
in the episode, I kind of wanted to jump in on the Second Amendment stuff that was starting to come up, the firearms discussion.
America.
I read that the Supreme Court may roll back. They're deciding on a case that could roll back a state's ability to control guns. And it was framed, the article I read was framed from the point of view is now lawmakers won't be able to stop gun violence.
Oh my goodness.
My first thought was, now lawmakers can make policies to deal with mental health issues to reduce violence rather than try to take a gun from somebody who can then use a knife or whatever else.
Yeah. Like they're using.
You're not seeing the big picture here. If people weren't abusing other people with them, it wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah. Violence is already against the law, right? The gun is just a tool. There was some dude several years ago killed like 18 people with a hammer in Japan before they stopped him. Not even a knife. I forget. Went down to like, whatever they have, like a Home Depot down there, bought a framing hammer and just started taking people out with it because everybody's unarmed. Everybody's unarmed. I mean, a hammer is a deadly weapon. I remember when I was a kid, there was a guy they found on the news and he had a hole in his head and they said it was about the size of a 50-cent piece. And my crusty ass old grandfather's like, I'll tell you what the hell happened. He got hit with a ball peen hammer in the head. And you're like, it was like 2 weeks later, it came out, they had found the murder weapon. It was a ball peen hammer. The old man was right. I mean, you don't stop violence by taking away weapons. You stop violence with policies against violence and with the ability of victims to not be victims, because a hammer's a deadly weapon, but dropping the hammer from a 1911 generally ends the hammer attack real fast, right? Like I promise you that's not going to work out well for you. And we need people to be armed, and we need armed with technology too. Yeah. On the other side, like even with this surveillance stuff with Bitcoin and transparency, I'm not getting rid of my Bitcoin. I have, publicly known existing Bitcoin. And I think Michael Saylor's right. I think that you'll be able to, at some point, basically borrow against your Bitcoin and run a cycle, like the never-ending debt cycle with it, and create a retirement income stream out of it until you die. And you'll die with like an 80% loan to value ratio. Your heirs will inherit the last 20% of it. You'll never spend a dime of it your entire life. Your balance will never go down, and you'll never pay any tax on it because it's debt. That'll be one way. The other way would be to loan it. You'll pay tax on the interest against the loan, but your underlying value never goes down. You never pay any tax on it. And this is, I think, I've had a lot of people not understand this. And this is very empowering when you understand it. People think if I buy Bitcoin and it goes up, I have to pay tax. No, you don't. You could go to Coinbase today, buy $100,000 worth of Bitcoin, transfer it to your non-custodial wallet, send a letter to the IRS telling them that you did it. Coinbase could send a picture to the IRS of you in a Bitcoin t-shirt petting your dog with your wallet displayed. Bitcoin could go up to that 100,000 could become $1 million, and you owe zero tax until you spend it or trade it, or sell it back into fiat. You don't owe any money on it because it went up. And I've actually had people argue with me with that, and I'm like, where do you get your bullshit from? Like, it works exactly. That's how stocks work. If you buy a stock and it goes up in value, you don't pay tax on it. If it pays a dividend, the dividend is taxable. The equity is not taxable until realized. And I think part of your empowerment, start learning tax policy, man. Start learning economic policy. I can't think of the name of the company now, but there's a company. I still get it. It's like an email every day you get, Financial Term. And I just can't remember the website that does it now, but they just send you a financial term every day to define it. What's that?
Literacy? I can't remember the word.
Financial literacy is what I'm talking about, but it's
yeah.
I'll look it up when somebody else is talking.
Somebody's screaming this in their car at the podcast.
They're probably on YouTube right now going,
no, they aren't. Nobody on YouTube's helping us out, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
I've been recommending it forever. Just knowing things like, what is liquidity? What does that mean? What is a short? What is a put? What is a call? What is an equity base? What is a first round of funding? Like, the people that you're dealing with here that are controlling the world, this is their vocabulary.
Yeah.
And you need to know their vocabulary so you understand what's going on and you can use it for yourself. I say this a lot. I'll say it again today. I'm sure I'll say it tomorrow. 95% of the tax code is how you get out of doing what the other 5% says you have to do.
Yeah.
And so you go ahead and raise taxes. I don't care. They raise taxes. My taxes go down because I just figure out other ways to creatively spend or dispose of my money.
Yeah. Everyone was all up in arms about Donald Trump paying like $395 in taxes, and they're like freaking out. I was like, I want to reach that level. Like, that's where I want to be.
Remember the meme, John? The Star Wars meme? And it was like Obi-Wan's telling Anakin, like, Donald Trump paid no taxes, and Anakin's like, can this power be learned?
Nice. Yeah, that's definitely a form of empowerment. Rather than being victim of the IRS code, you figure out ways to leverage it and make it work for you. And with wealth in general, I think a great book for people to start, it's a classic, Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And the thesis essentially is poor dad works for his money. Rich dad has his money work for him. And so you try to move as much stuff out of the earned income by exchanging your time for dollars, move it into earning passive income as returns on your investment. And that's really what it's all about. And then the idea, like, there's a definition of financial freedom when you can live your life, a good life with the high standard of living on your passive income entirely. That's when you have the good financial freedom life. And it's attainable. And back to the victim stuff, I saw somebody post the other day, it was like, if you're still unemployed, you just don't want to work, right? Because like the COVID thing knocked a bunch of people out, and like rightfully so, people that weren't entrepreneurs where you can shift and pivot, they were like, oh shit, I'm screwed. But enough time has gone by and there's enough opportunity to shift into a different industry where people are just content to suck off the government's teat really with these unemployment. And there's no reason, who was it? I think it was Bill Gates, right? I know he's enemy number one, but he was like, if you were born poor, it's not your fault. If you're still poor, it is your fault, right? I mean, we live in the wealthiest freaking country in the entire world in the history of existence. There's so much money going around and opportunity. People just need to go solve problems for people and add value to people's lives, and you can become abundant and more free.
Jennifer on YouTube says Investopedia.
It is. I was going to just say
that's a popular website.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Investopedia term of the day. I definitely recommend you subscribe to it. I subscribe to it 99% of the time. I'm like, I learned that shit 15 years ago. And every once in a while I'm like, huh. The other thing that's interesting is it seems to follow news cycles. So all of a sudden, like for years I was on it. And then all of a sudden stuff started coming through. And instead of being like liquidity, it would be like blockchain. Right? Delegated proof of stake was a term I saw recently.
Wow.
Like, so all of a sudden, this mainstream financial website is spouting out all kinds of things about blockchain and cryptocurrency. Yeah.
There's a whole CNBC crypto now. CNBC crypto, just all dedicated to crypto.
Oh, interesting.
Doesn't this make you think of the internet, really? Like, remember like Good Morning America back in the early 90s? They're like, what is internet? What's that at sign? Do you need the www? And they were asking each other, and they all sounded like they were like monkeys trying to find their ass. And then like all of them, of course, are like, well, of course the internet's wonderful. We all use the internet. And I think that's what crypto's doing right now. Like they crapped on it. They tried to kill it. They made it sound like it was, all for drug users. But here's what I think's coming next, right? Well, Bitcoin's okay. Elon Musk has Bitcoin. Like all these corporations have Bitcoin. No. The drug users are using the privacy coins now.
That's
they're going to shift the attack. But I also kind of look at it, well, you tried that shit with regular crypto and it didn't work. So why would I expect that your inept attempt is going to work now?
Yeah.
I would say be careful. They are going to regulate on and off ramps. So you need plausible, like you got to think about this like let's say you had a high cash business and you were taking, you know, $1,000 a week in $20 bills and storing it in a lockbox. Like at some point you have so much cash that you need to think about how you explain where it came from. And you need to spend it either in small amounts or whatever. You can't just go out and start buying Lamborghinis and shit without somebody showing up and going, hey, where did this all come from? So if you're a baller, be careful is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think it's important there's just so much value in building community and building agoras and counter economies, because those folks that have accumulated wealth and it's off book, it's black and gray, then they can go buy a car from their buddy that runs the dealership, or buy land from the guy that has the 100 acres, and we can buy goods and services from one another and just keep it in the family.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, like, I'm excited to see where things are going to go. I think we are turning a corner on this. I think that I actually said to my wife, totally different scenario, but some of the stupid shit that they're doing out of DC, I'm like, keep going, please.
Yep.
And she's like, what? I'm like, well, we have states that are, you know, getting closer and closer to, if not secession, at least like going, we've had enough, and throwing some state sovereignty up that ass. And like, I'm like, go ahead and step on these people enough, the ones that are half awake, and please wake them up, because I don't feel like our message can wake that half awake person. We wake up the 3/4 awake, like the guy that was going to wake up anyway. We maybe just like, you know, when you're in that dream state and you're waking up and you don't want to because the dream's actually good, and then you're like, I gotta wake up. We're like the guy that walks in and goes, hey, dude, wake up call. Like, that's the only person we can wake up. That guy that's in REM sleep, there is no talking to him. There's nothing we can do. But I think it's the boot on the face that can wake up the 3/4 awake person. And I think there's a lot more of them maybe than I even give credit for, because I've become pretty pessimistic on people.
Yeah, and if we ridicule people who are there, they go back to sleep. And that's
they're like,
what
screw
our
this.
movement has a problem
that guy's
with.
a jerk.
Stop being an ass. Start being a hand up.
I think they pushed it too far for a lot of people. It's just such a paradox, because so many people just went so deep into like worshiping Fauci. I saw a woman that had a mask outside at this farm that's attached to the tiny home community we live in. She's wearing a mask, and it has like sequins, and it's Dr. Fauci on the mask. Like, wow. It made me think, like, does she, and of course she had some vote for like a local Democrat candidate on her shirt. But it's like, do they have a shrine to Fauci? So some people went total extreme, just like wearing the mask when they're riding their bike, for example. And then some people like us went total extreme and just totally revolted against it, ignored it, and spoke out against it. But there's a lot of people in the middle that were like, the lockdown, I lost my job. I like had to I spent all my savings. I lost the mortgage on my house. Like, people are pissed off. And I think they took it too far. And this, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. I think we're experiencing that.
But it's not happening. Backpedaling though. I just read today, Pfizer has a cure, a pill you can take that if you start getting symptoms, stops it moving forward, that they're expecting to be FDA approved sometime in January.
Hydroxychloroquine.
Which then makes it so they can't force the vaccine on
Nicole, you know what that probably is.
I do.
Right?
From your workshop, I know exactly what that is.
We had a guy at our workshop that's an insider for me in the pharmaceutical industry. He works at the factory where they make the raw materials. So like when you hear, you know, Johnson & Johnson makes this pill, no, they don't. Right? Somebody else actually makes it, and then Johnson & Johnson stamps J&J on it. So he works for one of the few suppliers of hydroxychloroquine in the world. And somebody somewhere unknown bought all the raw materials for all the hydroxychloroquine for the next 5 years. And I'm going to say, this is not one of these guys that like pops up time to time and seems like this guy gave me credible information that put me, I was like one of my few stories I broke ahead of all the news media. Every single thing that happened with HCQ as that came out. So he's proven, and it's all been bought up. And I was like, when he told me that, I'm like, you know what they're going to do? They're going to take hydroxychloroquine that they said didn't work. They are going to put zinc in the hydroxychloroquine. and they're going to have a process by which that zinc goes into the hydroxychloroquine. They're going to patent, you can't patent zinc and you can't patent the hydroxychloroquine, but you can patent the process by which the two go together. And he goes, the guy, like remember, Nicole, his eyes went like that wide. And he goes, they're going to use chelated zinc. And I'm like, when it comes out, I am literally going to have to drink a fucking half bottle of bourbon to not have my blood pressure go up to here and have my eyes blow out of my face and have a coronary, because I know these bastards are going to do it. And what you just told me, man, I'm not going to bet a Bitcoin on it yet, but I feel like that's exactly what it's going to be then. You bastards. Holy shit. Oh, I hate being right sometimes, man. Oh.
Bet a pirate an R. Single R.
That's what keeps me from having a coronary right now. Looking at my balance. Yeah. When you buy something for 8 cents and it goes to $8, it feels pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty damn sweet. I had a stash, but so early on, back when it was 30 cents or so, I looked into it. You started talking about it. I knew that your audience was into it. And I was like, hey, I'll accept R for Kratom, so I can give some folks something to use their R for. I can start snacking some. But I foolishly traded a bunch of it for Cardano. I had traded into Bitcoin Cash, went to Cardano. I held some, obviously, but
yeah,
that was one of those.
Are you regretting that, John?
There's a lot of regrets. There are a lot of cryptocurrencies flowed through these hands in my phone and computer back when cryptocurrency was like $200.
Money though, right?
Yeah,
what you kept kind of exceeded the initial thing, then it's house money.
Yeah.
It's all about mindset too, because in cryptocurrency, you got to move away from the shoulda, coulda, if only this, that. And the real solution is I'm just going to make more money so I can stack more crypto.
Yeah.
Right? So I finally switched.
I'm not going to sit here as a guy that has a $50,000 shotgun upstairs and mock you for trading your R, because I bought, I guess it's almost $60,000 now. I bought it's a really beautiful shotgun. It's worth probably $2,000. And I got it for one Bitcoin when Bitcoin was right at $600.
Yeah.
It's a Belgian made Browning A5. It's freaking gorgeous. Was really happy with the trade, but I wouldn't pay a Bitcoin for it today. No. And, sometimes I go back and look at my trading history and I go, God, you stupid ass. You could own Jackistan by now. Yeah. And you can't think that way. When you're in retirement and you sell stock and then you use that stock to pay your expenses that year, and 5 years later, those stocks have tripled, you don't go back and say, well, my rent or my, whatever, my vacation cruise cost me 5 times what it did. We have living expenses. You can't save all your money.
Yeah.
But
the trick is just to make more money.
Well, it's empowerment. When you sell a house and you move and you make good money on your house, and then 5 years later it's worth twice or 3 times.
Look it up on Realtor.
My Portland, Oregon house astoundingly is whatever.
Yeah.
I made what I needed to make, and it got me to the next step here where I'm building my life. So
yeah, that's valid.
You can always get more money.
I looked up Dorothy and I's first house. We paid $84,250 for it.
Wow.
And it's right now it's worth $315,000.
Yeah.
Nice. And you're right. I don't sit there and go, damn, I should have kept that house. No, I don't think that way. It's not worth worrying about. We used it as money. John would probably be worth more than all of us put together if he kept all the Bitcoin that went through his hands.
Yep. I'd be on Roger Ver level. I bought two Bitcoin worth of Ethereum in the Ethereum crowd sale when one Ethereum cost 30 cents. Now it's $2,600. And then we sold and we're like, oh my God, wow, we made $10,000. This is great. It was $13,000. Wow, this is incredible. And then sure enough, but I wrote this article where I realized I didn't have a holding problem, a hold on for dear life problem. I had an income problem.
Sure.
And I would receive crypto as payment, and we would have to spend it to feed our kids and to pay rent and all that stuff. And so it's finally, you get to a point where you're like, okay, wow, I can save something. This is great. Maybe I'll save crypto. It's just all about abundance and empowerment and not beating yourself up. Because if you stay in that space, man, I made that bad decision. Oh, I could have been totally rich. I sold Bitcoin when it was 10K thinking I made it grow, man. And then you're in that scarcity space. But if you're like, I did good on that, or at least I learned from that, right? I got a great tip. I just did a video with several tips. One of them was this. If you are doing the game where you're accumulating this altcoin or you're speculating with altcoins and then they go up 5, 10%, 20%, maybe 2x, 5x, don't sell the whole bag. Hold on to a little portion of the bag as your hold on for dear life fund, because you can make a 5, 10%, 20% gain, even 100% gain. And then you, oh, wow, this is great. And then you hold on to maybe 20% of what you went in with. Or maybe you hold on to your initial investment if it does a 10x, 100x, and then you just wait for maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years, right? Because that sucker could go up exponentially. That's something I wish I had done back in the day. Now I know to do that, and I hope to teach people to do that too, because that's how you could still hold on to those winners. Then you get the best of both worlds. I do the
reverse of that, John. I pull out my initial. So let's say I had put $10 in on R.
Yeah.
And that $10 became $2,000. I'll take $10 back out. And I'm good, right? And then it's what I call house money at that point. Or you can take a little bit more out if you have a reason for it. But I'm right with you. Like, leave some in.
Yeah, a cool eureka for a lot of people, because a lot of the Bitcoin retractors are like, you aren't going to make any money unless you convert back to the dollar, and oh, you should have sold when it was this high, and so on and so forth. But the real paradigm shift is like, everything's going to be valued in Bitcoin potentially someday. It's like Bitcoin isn't the means to an end of more dollars. Bitcoin is the means to an end of more crypto, right? Or if you have a life plan, using the crypto as a means to an end of paying off the mortgage, for example, or putting the kids through college, or maybe taking that dream vacation that you always wanted to. Because at the end of the day, it is ones and zeros. I had a revelation too, because I would always just say that at the end of the day, it's ones and zeros. But if you're in a position where you can actually accumulate wealth, then just the mere act of holding on to the cryptocurrency is valuable, because it gives you a place to put that wealth that isn't being robbed from and leveraged to fight wars and stuff. Because if some people accumulate capital and wealth more than they need to spend, or, you know, they don't need to use it for something, it's a great vehicle to have your money and your wealth in.
As much as I love privacy coins, like I said, I'm not getting rid of my Bitcoin. To me, Bitcoin is the hardest money on the planet. No one can screw with it. No one can take it. Like, they can say, we know you have it. Do I? You know, I lost my private key. Like, I mean, you know, you can't devalue it. And what's happening right now, you want to talk about empowerment. So Strike has a major initiative going on down in El Salvador. They are basically like a cash app that uses the Bitcoin network. It might use Bitcoin, or it might use dollars, or it might use euros. It's using the Bitcoin network for settlement. But because of that, once you link your bank account to it, you can buy Bitcoin, you can hold Bitcoin, you can receive Bitcoin. Now, this is El Salvador. They have street vendors in El Salvador taking, spending, and using Bitcoin. And they have these like guys that are like, I'm finally saving money. And I think this is the real empowerment of having something that's a hard money that you, and people are like, it has nothing backing it. I'm not even going to get into it. You don't, just please do your own research and learn before you write it off that way. It has like the most secure network on the planet backing it with gigawatts of electricity behind it and energy to do that. And because it's hard money, people start to realize, okay, so it's going to be worth more in the future. They don't want to spend it. And people make like that's a problem. But for a lot of people, once they get into crypto, it's especially young people, the first time in their life, they actually start saving money. The first time in their life, they get money in their hands and they go, I'm not going out with my friends with this. I'm not buying whiskey shots for everybody with this. Yeah. At least some of it has to go get put away, right? We all know the 10% rule. And the reality of the 10% rule is only 10% of people start doing it before they're 40, right? Like 10%, you put 10% of your income away, but only 10% of people do it, right? And if they do it in the man's system in like a 401k or something.
Yeah.
And then sooner or later they lose a job and they pull it all out. They pay all the penalties. The taxman gets their money and then they blow it. People get their hands on crypto and they start thinking differently about money. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I heard on, I don't know whose podcast it was. It might've been What Bitcoin Did, the British dude. But he was talking about how, maybe it was Michael Saylor talking about it, how when you get into really hard money, like money that can't be changed, that goes up in value, you start building things differently. You don't build things for tomorrow or the next day or the next week or the next quarter. You don't start building a company or infrastructure so you can flip it. You start building multi-generational. When money gets harder, you build longer term infrastructure. And if you think about like all of the amazing architecture, all of the real the marvels of the world from ancient times, they were all built during during eras of hard money, like the Roman aqueducts and all that. Like that was when gold was firmly in place. And that long, hard money made that investment worth doing. And as soon as they went off of it, as soon as they started throwing around bronze coins stamped with Caesar, everything went to shit. Because everybody has to start thinking, how do I get this money out of my hand? Right now, we talk about financial literacy. Cost of capital, real cost of capital is about 15%. So when you have $1,000 in the bank, you feel good about it. When Tesla's sitting there looking at $10 billion in the bank, you know what they're thinking? Okay, it's going to cost me $1.5 billion this year to hold on to that cash. Maybe we should put $1 billion in Bitcoin. That's exactly how that calculus happens. And I know that's hard to take in for a lot of people. The person that's like, but I just got my paycheck and it's already spent and I'm going to have 20 extra bucks at the end of this week. And that's all I've got if I don't do anything fun. But if you're going to get from there to the next level, you have to change the way you think about money. It doesn't work like then you have money, then the way you change, the way you think, right? You know, your guy you always talk about.
Grant Cardone.
Yeah, Cardone, right? Like you know that from that type of thinking too. You have to change this before you change the wallet. And I think crypto does that for people in a weird way. You know,
people are experiencing. Go ahead.
Well, my wife started taking Litecoin for duck eggs, and she ended up with like a couple $100 worth of Litecoin, and she had like $195 worth of Litecoin, and like we had that recent run up, and she didn't get any more Litecoin, and she goes in there, she goes, "Holy shit, I have like $300 worth of Litecoin." And the first words out of her mouth after she said that was, "I want more."
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's what it does. It makes you, instead of thinking about how I can spend it, how can I acquire it? And that's how you build wealth. I mean, if you read Richest Man in Babylon, and everybody fucking should, and it's free as an audio on YouTube.
Yeah, do that. Do the YouTube.
Good Lord. It is the same thing, because that whole book was written on the concept of money being gold. Don't worry about gold. Worry about it being hard. Worry about it not being devalued. Like the strike thing, when the guy was talking about El Salvador, he was talking about how like all the stimulus checks went out and they didn't get any money down there. And my first initial response to that was, I don't give a shit. You're El Salvador. Why do I care that El Salvador didn't get any money? Well, then he pointed out, because they use the US dollar. Yeah. So we're devaluing the dollar, which is the national currency of El Salvador. But at least when we get our dollars devalued, they throw us some crumbs, right? Like, so they're getting their dollars devalued and they don't get any crumbs. Well, that's a case for Bitcoin. And that's why you have street vendors selling empanadas in El Salvador for Bitcoin.
But, and if
with
you
zero fees.
The El Salvador model, right? When you travel there with your US dollars stuffed in your shoe.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how you're keeping them safe. When you travel there with your Bitcoin in your head, the only way they're going to get that from you is torture, I guess. I don't even know. And that becomes a more secure way to interact. So it makes it easier for the foreigner traveling in El Salvador to get that empanada without losing their
safe.
Breath.
Yeah, nobody's gonna steal it, you know, because I've
You're
been to Central. I haven't been to El Salvador, but I've been to Central America. And there's some places you don't want to go. I was in Central America with a gun on my back, and I still didn't feel comfortable. So most people who go to Central America are not going to be able to walk around with a concealed handgun like I could, because of what I was doing. And I was thinking, man, like being here unarmed. Yeah. And they were cool people. Like most of the people were fine, but like, there's also like, you know, if you have blonde hair and blue eyes, you kind of stick out, you know, maybe John could blend in or some shit, but I'm not blending in down there, especially when I was 22 years old. Like you're like, whant American, whant American. And if I was down there today, I'd much rather be carrying around crypto in some sort of electronic format. Because you can even dummy that. Like you can have two wallets, and somebody does put a knife. He goes, "Send me all your crypto." There you go. You got $50.
Yeah.
That's all you got. That's all I got.
Yeah. It'll be worth 500 someday, thief. Don't worry. I think it's really cool that there's this massive transfer of wealth taking place away from the elite class and the traditional banking class, Wall Street class, towards all these like young punk visionaries. And even like Roger Ver is a perfect example, right? I don't know why the guy's so polarizing. He's like pure, consistent, voluntarist message. And he applied that message to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. He was just like, I want to support what I think is the best money. And because of these scaling problems with Bitcoin, that's not the best money anymore. Bitcoin Cash is, but whatever. But he's a cool example. Like he became independently wealthy selling like computer parts. And then he was selling like quarter stick of dynamite that was illegal by the ATF. And because he ran for LP and gave this speech slamming the ATF and their role in Waco, they went and investigated him and they locked him up, right? And after that, he's like, screw it, I'm out of here. I'm renouncing my citizenship. But he started getting involved in cryptocurrency early. And that dude became a crypto millionaire when Bitcoin was like $10 or $100.
Yeah.
And now imagine how many times over when it's 55,000, which is sweet. And he's so generous. Like he supported the D3 Tech Summit and sponsored with Bitcoin.com. The guy's so generous. But a person like that, here we have radical voluntarist people that are coming into mass amounts of wealth and they're using it in order to reshape society. It's just like what takes place with these tax exempt foundations, the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They come into mass wealth and then they use it to reshape civilization and society and history towards more control and more surveillance, right? Well, we have a counter to that thanks to cryptocurrency in large part, where all these people are now using it to reshape this and that. There's this dude that trades and he's real public about it. This guy, Nathan, on Facebook, I'm friends with. And he was like, he just posted like a month ago, I lost it all. And then a week later, he's like, I got it all back. And then he just posted, well, I just set aside 2 years worth of living expenses. Now I can basically do what I want. I think I'll get back into coding. And it's like, wow. And all he does is trade and day trade and stuff. There's a lot of opportunity, and there's still opportunity for people think they missed the boat because the price of Bitcoin, not only is Bitcoin going to continue to go up, very likely will break 100,000 within a calendar year from now. Very likely will punch through that to 200, 400, 500 as more and more big money with treasuries in the hundreds of millions. Big corporations are like, wow, you're being debased. I heard that same 15% inflation from Michael Saylor. And he said it's like the M2 money supply that's inflating at that rate. And they don't even put the records of the M2 money supply anymore. They're like, this is getting too much. They've
been hiding the M3 for like 15 years. Now they're hiding M2.
It's straight thievery. It's an inflation tax, a hidden tax. This is only going to continue. And if it's not Bitcoin, it's still worth getting in Bitcoin. It's the pirate. Look what we just saw with Pirate Chain. And that was an opportunity. Spearco was blasting on it. Interestingly enough, I had some haters. They're Bitcoin maximalists. There's this whole thing in cryptocurrency, people that are like so heavy duty Bitcoin. And it's not just Bitcoin. It was like, well, Bitcoin, it seems like we did this segregated witness and the Lightning Network. Therefore, that's the best thing ever. And anything else is trash. And after we finished D3, it was the evening after we finished. I'm like fucking tired. I just hosted this huge thing for 5 hours straight. And somebody's like, well, I noticed that they didn't talk about Lightning Network. That was either ignorance or they were selfish. All I heard was a bunch of people pimping their project, Pirate Chain. Everyone's trying to get new investors in so they can make money. And I was like, you realize every single person that talked about Pirate Chain, Spearco and Mike Swatek, were talking about it when it was 18 cents, unknown, ranked like 200 in the market cap. It wasn't because it went up in value.
390 in market cap.
Yeah.
When I started talking about it, and she didn't go screw because I have no control over Pirate, and I've made my money when Pirate went parabolic. I knew it was going to go way up, but I wasn't sure. I took a conservative approach, and I have a lot. I'm going to say how much because I'm not stupid, but I took 20% of my holdings. I put them in when it started really going up for sale at $12.50. And as soon as it triggered, I put in a buy order at $9.50.
Nice.
So I don't give a shit what it does. It can go to $4. I don't care because I'm playing that long because I understand the intrinsic underlying value of it. I have as, I would say I have as much in Bitcoin as Pirate, but I don't now because it worked out so well. But I had a fraction of my money in Pirate. It just seemed like a good play. Mm-hmm. My point in saying, hey, this is a thing you should look into is I think it's good to have money that I can spend and give to Nicole and nobody knows about it. Right. And Lightning Network is in danger right now. I can't remember the organization, but it's like the financial version of Interpol. Right. It's like this giant multinational conglomerate that comes out with financial policies. And to be fair to Bitcoin and Lightning Network, they started working with and they're doing it with Litecoin, but you would be able to do it with Bitcoin then too. The Mimblewimble protocol, which actually would create a lot of obfuscation, coin mixing, etc., for Bitcoin. So Bitcoin could be somewhat private. The problem is this new guidance would then take somebody that's operating as a Lightning node and turn them into a financial service provider and put them under regulation. Well, good luck doing that with a peer-to-peer technology like R that is private by default. There is no financial service provider. There is no Lightning node. There's just, it's basically really, really advanced Napster for money. That's what it is. You can't, even the new SEC commissioner said, yeah, you really can't ban something that's peer-to-peer. Right? Like, so you got the SEC commissioner coming out and going, you can't ban something that's peer-to-peer. So if I build something that's peer-to-peer and private, piss off. And so I don't know. People like that, they don't know what the hell they're talking about, honestly.
Yeah. I just left the group. It was a group that this person created. And I knew that they were pretty adamant about, I think we just lost Nicole, pretty adamant about Lightning Network. I just left the group because I was like, not only was it just BS on the surface, but I was just kind of offended. Like, wow, I just put so much time and energy and my team into pulling off this event. And all these speakers just came and donated their time and nobody's making money here. And that's how you're going to respond because we didn't pimp your pet project. Like, give me a freaking break. Wasn't even about that. But
that
whatever.
seems like everything, John, just so you know. And so our audience knows what happened to Nicole. Power went out.
Oh boy.
I got a text from her, right? That was that big ding. And so the power went out. And so she's in the darkness and cannot connect. So we'll have to finish without her. Right, I think we're close anyway, though, aren't we? I mean,
yeah. I got some plans, so we should wrap up right at 4:30. We got 9 minutes. Let's hit. If anybody's got any questions or comments in the audience, we'll be sure to cover that.
Are you on YouTube? Sure. Can you see it?
Yeah, I can see.
I'm not. Okay, cool.
You can ask in all caps there, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I think the video or this podcast kind of turned into like empowerment through cryptocurrency.
It did.
Because we can bang on cryptocurrency all day, but it has that theme of like, you can have the mindset, you can start engaging in wealth. And there's so many folks that are struggling, and I hate to see them struggling. And there's people like in some of our audiences that maybe not as much your audience, but in some of the circles that I roll with. And I could tell that they don't have a good relationship with money. And they're not like socialists, but they're like definitely not capitalists. And besides capitalism, they don't see it as a value to accumulate wealth or to make more money than you have to use. And I recognize that it's like, the big thing that having money does is it gives you choices. Mm-hmm. So here we have people that are simultaneously ripping on 5G technology, taking over the city, and they know about the smart cities and control grids really going to be ushered in these big cities like Austin, Texas, for example, or Dallas. And then they're also hating on wealth, or at least saying money is a problem. If you say money is a problem, then money's not going to come to you. It's going to turn around and run the other way. And so they want to get out of the city, but they don't have, everyone has the dream of doing an eco-village or intentional community or buying a couple acres on the outside of town. But it takes money and capital to do that. So you really got to reframe your relationship with money. And money, just like cryptocurrency and a gun, can be used for great harm, right? But it can also be used to do some really cool stuff.
Absolutely,
for yourself,
John.
And for others.
I'm trying to make sure I'm pulling this up to see if I have it here so I don't misquote Michael Saylor. And I know I mentioned him a lot. I don't think like Michael Saylor is like the god of crypto or anything, but he said something to the effect, I don't have it where I thought I did, that the road to serfdom is working exponentially harder for a currency growing exponentially weaker. And I would challenge some of those people out there that still have all their assets in fiat currency. Maybe they even have a little bit of money and they think they're doing okay because they have a financial liar. That's what I call financial advisors generally, that says, you're well diversified. Well, you're well diversified because you have small cap, mid cap, growth in income, and bond funds. No, you have no diversification.
Yeah.
You have zero diversification. You have 100% of your money in equities denominated in dollars. That is not diversity. And maybe your problem is not that you haven't been working hard enough, but all your life you've been working for money, and the little bit you're able to save, it's akin to, if you think the safest way to keep your money is in cash in a shoebox hidden under your bed. Well, imagine you do that, but every year somebody comes in and takes 15% of your money out of the shoebox.
Yeah.
And literally the more money you get in the shoebox, the more money they take every year. That's what inflation is. And having currencies that are not subject to inflation, they're actually deflationary, is a game changer. Why do you think Tesla invested in Bitcoin? And people are shitting on them now because they sold like 20% of their Bitcoin.
10%.
Tesla did exactly the number. I thought it was cool because I'm like, that's exactly how much I sold. Like, they locked their profit in.
No, he said that they wanted to prove that there's liquidity enough out there to make it viable.
That was just a nice way of saying we locked our profit in. So basically now they can say, you know what, we're in the money, right? We're already back into that equity. We're good. And now we can hold this long term. And if our shareholders give a shit, we can tell them shut up. That's what that is. The other side is they're probably going to take at least that much money in selling Cybertrucks for Bitcoin. Because I mean, out of spite,
they're going to hold it.
If I was going to buy a Cybertruck, and I'm not, because I don't buy the first generation of freaking any technology, right?
Except for
Gen
Bitcoin.
2 will look at it, right? Like, but if I was going to buy one, just on a point of pride, if I had the cash, I would go buy freaking Bitcoin and I would spend Bitcoin just as a point of making up. And there are people out there that are going to do that. There's people that are going to buy Cybertrucks and Tesla 3s and shit like that for Bitcoin just because they can, right? Like they're going to, like, I'm not saying somebody's going to be like, oh, I'll just go buy a Tesla because, they sell for Bitcoin. I'm saying somebody's going to be like, I want to buy a car. I need to buy a car. Tesla takes Bitcoin. I'm buying a Tesla. Like that shit's going to happen. They're going to get that Bitcoin back in sales. Right. And so they really haven't reduced their position by quantity at all. Anyway, they're up like 100%. They sold 20. Yeah. Like people that criticize that's back to, you need to get on the Investopedia, like financial literacy email of the day, because that's smart. And I saw that in like the R Telegram chat. People are like cussing out and being like juvenile delinquents about people selling. Like, they're being pushed out as weak hands or whatever. I'm like, it's good because you got newbies coming in just because of R. But like, okay, you don't understand money. Like some of you folks who have like $300 worth of this shit, and you're talking crap about somebody that just made $1.5 million in 3 weeks, and you're talking shit about them. They're not weak hands. They're smart. They understand money, and you don't.
Yeah, and they still have more worth.
And they still have more. Yeah, they didn't sell it all. No. Now some of these guys have been mining that shit since it started getting mined, and they're sitting on, they're sitting on 200,000 or 300,000 R. And they're awesome. Like, shit, it went to $9 or it went to $12 or like the high was like 16. And they're like, so I can sell 1/4 of my R, bank 1.6 million, and keep the other 75%. Of course they did, because they're not stupid. That's why. I mean,
there's this beautiful force multiplier that creates exponential value when these coins, like R was obscure. You started promoting it, talking about it when it was 18 cents, 30 cents, 8 cents.
8 cents.
I got on and was like, these wallets suck, right?
Yes, they did.
Now it's a huge market cap of $2 billion. And so now there's money to invest back into the ecosystem, into the wallets, into the marketing, into paying developers and stuff. And that's only going to snowball. There she is. We have people in the audience already offering to help get you off grid there, Nicole.
Just real quick on the wallets, like the new wallets are awesome. The new Light wallet and the new Node wallet are both awesome. If you're upgrading from one to the other, it might be kind of cumbersome, but if you're doing a fresh install, what I ended up doing, I installed the new Light wallet on a new machine and sent all my R to myself in small amounts to make sure nothing went. But yeah, I mean, the new Light wallet works like the first time you start it, it's frustrating because you'd think it's a full node wallet. It takes forever to sync. Once it does, it's like any other wallet now. So they'd already fixed that. They're going to change a few things. And like I said, if they get liquidity in the exchanges, then it's game on.
It's on. Well, they're getting add to Changely. I think that's a big exchange.
They're already on Changely. Of course, Changely, if you want to do the real shit on Changely and do KYC because you want to get into the real high volume trading on Changely, it's not open to U.S. citizens. That's the negative about Changely. Bastards.
Whoops. Yeah. The full node wallet, do you still have to do that wonky stuff where you got to move over the file to a directory and stuff, or did they repair that?
The new one is great if it's a fresh install. That is the thing. Like the one thing they didn't do is put in like a really good way to like uninstall the old shit. So like I had to, like on my Mac, I had to hunt down all the individual files and destroy them. And then I was able to do a fresh install with it. And then the seed phrase only imported the primary address from the old one. So then I went in and nuked it again, did a complete fresh install, started it up as a new wallet, and sent from one machine to the other, then nuked it on the other machine and reinstalled it on there, and then synced it back. It was something that if you're new to crypto, you would be really stressed about, like really stressed about.
And this is why you only play with small amounts when you're moving it around at first, to make sure you understand what's going on, which Jack says all the time. But I watched somebody lose $20,000 in Bitcoin because they didn't know what they were doing. Wow. $20,000 US to Bitcoin, needed to get it back, fucked up and gone.
Somebody's asking, is R still a good buy? I think so. I mean, I guess it hit all-time high of 1650. Now it's like 950. I did a video I invite people to check out on my YouTube channel. It was 5 different cryptocurrency tips. One of them, it was like a sub tip, was that send a small amount first. It's hard to do with Bitcoin because of the damn transaction fees, but you do a little test fee. But I actually got the math wrong, and somebody in the Crypto Geese group called me on it, thankfully, because I was like live streaming, calculating what the market cap could be if because there's this great technique when you're speculating on lower market cap coins, and you're like, okay, could I double this? Could I 10x? Could this 100x? And the technique is to do a thought experiment. If R went to $20 or $100, or the price of Zcash, for example, a comparative coin, then what would the market cap be, right? And if the market cap ends up being like 2 trillion or greater than Bitcoin, then that's highly unlikely for that to happen anytime soon. Of course, the whole cryptocurrency ecosystem. And so I was doing the math. I did the math wrong, and I got a really high number, and somebody corrected me, and I was like, thank you. I went back and edited that part out of some of the videos too. And on the ones I could, and I put disclaimer, I got the math wrong. But the math was specifically talking about R. If R were to reach the price of Zcash, even though Zcash has fewer coins, Zcash is capped at 21 million coins, which is good for increasing in value. Pirate Chain apparently is capped at 200 million coins.
Correct.
So already it would seem that it would be more difficult for that many coins to reach that same value, but it's still feasible, because if R were to be $233, which was how much each Zcash coin was a couple days ago, then the overall market cap of Pirate Chain would have to be 46 billion, which is totally in the realm of possibilities.
It's definitely possible. If you do it a different way and you say, well, what's the closest thing out there to R right now, would be Monero. And Monero has like about a $6.5 billion market cap. I think that's about right. And so that would put, if R is as good as Monero, if it can have as much of a use case as Monero, and I think it can, then you're looking at a fair market value right now somewhere in the mid-20s.
Yeah, it would triple.
Right. That's the other way to look at it. And I think that's a much more conservative approach. So the question was, is R a good buy still right now? And I was actually looking up, well, what is it trading for before I go answering this with my, it depends. So R's trading at 785 right now.
Yeah.
Is it a good buy? If you are going to hold it long term, it's totally a good buy. If you're trying to get the best price you're going to get in the next 2 weeks, I don't know. I don't know, but probably not. I think there's still more downside in it in the next few weeks. There's a lot of people that got nervous. They want to sell. There's a lot of people that started realizing, oh, I could have made so much money and I didn't. There was a lot of people trying to get their R deposited to sell it in the run up because they didn't do it in advance of the run up because they didn't think. And they're like, holy shit, I'm rich. And so there was a lot of panic selling. There was a lot of panic buying. There's
it was
not
a lot of exchanges either.
Like, and there's a lot of exchanges. There's not a lot of liquidity. So I think this is like, it moved too quick out of the gate. Could it be a $50 asset by June? Yeah. Am I going to bet my farm on it? No. Right. Like, but is it a coin that we can expect to be around long term, be in the $20 to $50 range at some point, in the next year or two? Sure. So is $7 a good buy if you got a thing with a target of $20 to $50? Sure. Is it the best deal you're going to get? I don't know. That's an honest answer. That's all I can give you. Could have bought the shit when I said it was to buy it at 8 cents. That's what you should have done.
I waited till it was 18, Jack.
That's okay. That's totally okay.
Roasting season. Come on.
Nice.
Yeah, text me that shit.
And I will say this. I've been talking about crypto and recommending different cryptos to look into and learn about since 2014. That's a long time. It's not the beginning, but it is a long time. R was the first one that I ever said, you need to buy this. You need to own this. There's only time I've said that in 7 years. And now I'm saying
seal of approval.
Right. So now I'm saying you need to look at it. Like when it was 8 cents, I'm like, this is stupid. Like there is no reason not to do this. Like you buy 1,000 shares, what, for $800? Like, come on. Like, yeah, like there's too much upside in this not to take a shot at it. Now you got to think about it. Cause now, even at $8, 1,000 shares is $8,000. That's real money, especially for a lot of people. That's like, they spend $8,000. They don't have it. They're not paying their bills next month. So yeah.
I'm looking at the projects in your little privacy consortium that you had Draco on, or whatever his name is, Drath. Because there's some that haven't popped off yet to examine.
No. I want Sentinel, and you can only get it on MCX or MXC or something like that. And so I went and did it. It's no KYC, but I didn't know that it was what it was. So I did it without, I had my VPN on, but I didn't have it set to like France or some shit. So it recognized that I was from the US. And after I went through all the shit,
oh man,
it said, we don't sell to US customers, piss off. And I'm like, and it's the only exchange it's on right now. And I think it's selling for a fractional of a cent. And it's the ticker symbol's SENT.
So you could load up on them.
And I'm just going to say, I would pay like a 10% premium on somebody that wanted to sell direct.
There you go. That's the best way. I bought and sold some R in the crypto geese groups and on some of the MeWe groups.
Yeah. So it was an ERC20 token. So it was on the Ethereum chain. And it was, of course, like gas fees were stupid. So I didn't buy any of it back then. And now that they switched it over to Cosmos, it's a proof of stake. And it's like a declining proof of stake. Like instead of a halving with mining, it's a halving of the proof of stake. And I think the proof of stake rate on it right now is like 42% per annum. And it goes down every like 60 days. So it's like when they first let a new coin out and you can mine the shit out of it with a laptop. Like it's kind of like that, but for proof of stake. And I want to get my hands on some of it.
Heck yeah.
And I'm not going to go spend $10,000 on it, but.
Is that a Monero mask or socks? Tell me it's socks.
It's
okay.
Socks. This is one
Monero
of the fun
socks?
gifts I got at my workshop.
That's cool. Socks. Nice. You can put that on the barter blanket.
To me is like probably pretty happy that made it here, but yeah.
Hey, will you let me share screen real quick, Nicole? I want to show a tool. Yeah, whoever the host was would have to show me.
I just wanted to. I think Monero's $1,000 asset, by the way.
Give me a sec.
There he goes.
I'll just make you host.
Do what Spearco does.
Have you asked to share or?
Host disabled participant screen sharing. I think you can switch it to allow others to do it. But I just wanted to demonstrate, this is something that we're going to teach in the workshop, how to recognize support and resistance levels. So you can go make an educated decision as to whether or not it's a good time to buy. So I assume everyone can see my screen here.
Yes.
Maybe you can ask in the YouTube audience. So this is a chart, a daily chart. Each one of these candlesticks represents 1 day's worth of price action. If the candlestick is green, it means that the price started here at the bottom and ended up here at the top. This is that huge day of gains right there. And it was running up to a lot. If the candlestick is red, it means that the price started at the top and it ended up lower. These little wicks, they're called, is where the price action was. And wherever the actual solid candlestick is where that term, that period opened and closed. So this is CoinGecko.com. This is my favorite website to view all the different coins. I like it better than CoinMarketCap. And it has this tool called Trading View. So you just go in here to Pirate Chain. You click on Trading View, right? And then you can do 1 minute, 30-minute, days. So we can see there's support here. Support is where the price goes down and it kind of bounces off of the bottom. Imagine it being like a floor. Okay. There's also resistance. Resistance is the ceiling. So prices have a tendency to bounce between the floor support and the ceiling resistance. This is a natural phenomenon, and the traders recognize this also. So it has a self-fulfilling prophecy. So as we can see, there's a nice healthy support that's formed over the past several days right here. And this is a Bitcoin chart because I don't think there's a US dollar tether pairing to Bitcoin. So you can see there's, I don't know how many Satoshis that is, 1.5 million Satoshis. That's how you say these terms, or you could say 0.00015 Bitcoin. Yeah. So when the price is somewhere around here at the bottom, unless it busts through the bottom of this support, which would be a bearish sign, meaning R will likely correct even more, unless it busts through the support, somewhere around this support area could be a decent place to buy. And then as you can see, the price will have a tendency, it may not bust through this again. And if it does bust through this resistance here around 0.00026, if it does bust through this resistance, then the chances are it's more likely that it'll continue to rise in value. So this is a great mechanism for determining if it's a great place to buy. If you can establish clear lines, a channel of resistance and support, and your price is bouncing around the bottom of the support line, then it may be a decent time to buy. Of course, this is all like, you never know what the hell is going to happen. And even though history shows us that there's a tendency for this type of price action to happen, you never know at the end of the day. So you never want to risk more than you're willing to lose. Plus, the damn thing with the cryptocurrency space is, if Bitcoin's doing good and like things are doing good, and then Bitcoin drops because of something out of China or whatever, they shut down the electricity, oftentimes it takes the entire altcoin market with it. Yep. That happened recently to just about every single altcoin except for freaking Pirate Chain. Pirate Chain was 200%, 300%. So that's pretty exciting. And right now we have they call it the altcoin season. Bitcoin's kind of consolidating a little bit, just got out of this little bearish zone. And it's a good time to be in the alts. But this is stuff, just to plug the workshop again, I'll teach you in depth how to learn this so you can make a more educated decision, which means that whenever you do invest in cryptocurrency, whether you're going from dollar to Bitcoin or Bitcoin to Pirate Chain, you'll be able to make an educated decision and you'll get the best bang for your buck.
I got two little tips on trading for people. If you're on an exchange and you're holding Bitcoin, and you need to send it to another exchange to buy something because the thing you want to buy is not on exchange A, you got to send it to exchange B. Make sure the other asset's on the other exchange first and swap it into something like Litecoin or Algorand or something cheap to send. BCH. Send that over, transfer it into something that's tradable for what you want, and then trade it over there. That will save you money because you won't be spending $10 to send $100 worth of Bitcoin. Yeah. Bitcoin's real expensive to send right now. The other side of that is learn about limit orders. So a lot of people just buy at market, especially when you're buying these really cheap coins. Because if something's at like 10 cents and you buy it at 8 cents and you're buying $1,000 worth, that's 200 freaking extra coins. It matters. And if they're still in that point where it's bouncing, it's probably going to come down. And instead of sitting there, refresh, wait, you set a limit order in. When you do that, most exchanges now do have a tether board. And a lot of people hate tether because it's the dollar or whatever. When you're trading, in my humble opinion, because most people still think in dollars, convert to tether and use tether as your limit buy, because that way you can think and say, I'm putting in a limit at 8 cents or 16 cents or $1.50 or whatever it is. It's much easier to keep that in mind, because if you're setting a limit order with Bitcoin and Bitcoin fluctuates, now you got both sides of the trade in flux. Where that's the whole point of stable coins. Stable coins today, they're talking about using them for selling credit cards and shit. No, the whole point of original stable coins was so that a trader could lock a gain in and then put in their next buy order, but know that they were holding stable on the order. And that makes, to me, everything easier. And the little TA you were doing there, John, it was all priced in Bitcoin. A lot of times TA tools will have where you can flip between dollar value and Bitcoin value. And for a lot of people, especially when you're starting out, if you can flip to that dollar value on your technical analysis, it helps your brain until you learn to think in Bitcoin. I think it's great to learn to think in Bitcoin, but it takes a while.
Yeah, that's a challenge too. And if you can shift the thinking of accumulating more of the crypto rather than accumulating more of the dollar value. I don't have the choice here on CoinGecko because there is a US dollar tether pairing, a pairing you can trade Bitcoin for R or Bitcoin for US dollar tether. There's not a straight dollar pairing, so it didn't let me see that there. But trading with US dollar tether would have the same effect.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I got to get rolling.
Yeah.
You guys got anything to add? I think this actually ended up being a pretty damn good episode. We were saying when you went on your blackout there, Nicole, that the theme ended up being like empowerment through cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing
just all kind of evolved.
What happened? Did Tactical hit something with a hammer or something? Or
no,
just
we
have a
we
brownout?
have the usual spring weather here, and it took out that tower right up over there, which reset itself. So
blame the government.
I saw the blinking and I thought, well, that's it. So
yeah.
Right on.
When you hear a boom before your power goes out, that's when it's going to be a while.
Yeah.
When it just flashes, you're like, shit. When it goes pop, you're like...
That takes me 10 minutes to fix because I go on the cell network and it takes about 10 minutes to transfer all this over to that. So the internet came back. I was lucky.
All
right. Well, be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and subscribe to the podcast feed. You can find all of that on unloosethegoose.com. We got some great Telegram chats for the community. There's a crypto geese one that's focused in on cryptocurrency. And then there's a broader Unloose the Goose talking all things freedom and agorism and preparedness and homesteading. So you can link to those on unloosethegoose.com. Again, I want to invite you to take part in the Demystifying Crypto workshop. You can go to cryptoandprivacy.com, cryptoandprivacy.com. Or if you want to do a free mini course on how to set up a wallet, I set up this nice 5-6 video mini course, setupacryptowallet.com, setupacryptowallet.com. It'll show you how to do that. I may do a free report thing on just really simplifying and making it really easy to get onboarded with Pirate Chain because there's it's a good coin and there's a lot of interest for sure.
We need it.
Cool.
My little app I want to throw out for people to use, like keep track of like if you have your coins in different wallets and all, you want to manage your portfolio. Coinstats.app. That is my favorite management tool, and it gives you options like you can connect it to your exchange accounts, your wallets, and shit like that. I'm just gonna say I don't do that. I manually make my entries and things like that. I don't want any third-party service linked into any shit like that. But you can do a lot of TA with it. You can see a lot of history. You can watch. You can do a lot of things, and it's got a really great news section too. It has like trending, latest, hot, all that shit, and it's aggregated from everywhere.
Sweet.
And my crypto solution is just, if you need to stay awake while you're doing this, buy your coffee at hollowroast.com.
Yeah.
Shameless promotion.
My girlfriend's been drinking it every morning. She likes it. We put it in our little Keurig machine, in one of those little custom Keurig things where you can put anything in there.
All roast is the shiz, man.
It's good stuff. She's all roasted up. All right, cool, ladies and gentlemen. This is Unloose the Goose. Nicole Sauce, Jack Spirko, John Bush, signing out. Until next week. Honk, honk.